Well, all right. Ugh. Well, I sat through all 8 hours, and yes, I do mean 8 hours of Fubar, Arnold's first TV show on Netflix, and I'm here to tell you, man, that it is aptly named. I watched Fubar last week, but between court...
I had another hearing. Here's the good news. I think I'm going to get off, huh? I have a good lawyer.
Just kidding, it was jury duty. Field trips for work, and a memorial for a friend who sadly passed away suddenly. I didn't really have the time or energy to sit down and talk about even one more joyless thing. But here we are. So a quick rundown of Fubar's plot. I'll try to stay spoiler-free and stick to footage from the first episode in case you guys decide to watch it for whatever reason. I think it is #1 on Netflix, so that's a pretty strong incentive. But here we go. Arnold is a retiring CIA officer who plans to use his retirement to like reconnect with his family, but like more specifically his ex-wife, if you catch my meaning. He has 2 kids. Not that the show seems to really care about the son all that much. He's kind of only in it for little brief bits, and the writing around it's not very strong. There's a plot that happens in the show that comes out of nowhere, which I don't want to spoil for you because it is just wild. But he has like a perfect daughter, and it should be noted that the daughter is dating Jay Baruchel. Not sure if I pronounced his name right, but the dude isn't even in the trailer. Like, I did a whole trailer trash with Maynard. I don't think I saw Jay Baruchel once, but whatever. He's in the show, and he's got a pretty substantial role, so that was weird. But everything seems ready for Arnold to literally set sail into the sunset on a brand new sailboat that the CIA just gives him from like a drug seizure. Whatever, I don't really care. But as fate and a healthy amount of hack writing would have it, he needs to go undercover for one last job to save a burned asset that just so happens to be embedded with a cartel that he helped dismantle years ago. Now, only Arnold can do this because he had killed the previous head of the cartel and then spent the last 30 some odd years secretly taking care of the dead guy's kid, I think it was. Maybe it was 20 years, I don't know. He sent him to fancy schools, and he would check in on him from time to time and, just kind of help him get through life. So Arnold is off to rescue a soon-to-be-burnt CIA agent, and wouldn't you know it, happens to be his perfect daughter, and hijinks ensue. At least that's what I'm pretty sure they wrote in the script when they ran out of things to say, because the series loses the plot over and over again while trying to make jokes and quips, and just like none of it works. They try and use a lot of comedy as like band-aids here for like just bad writing, and it becomes so tiring. Like, for example, like after finding out, like, it's just bad writing, guys. Like, finding out that her father is a CIA agent, you think the daughter would have an appreciation for all the years he tried to live a double life. But no, she gets angrier and angrier because she thinks that he was away selling gym equipment for most of her life, and she tried so hard to be perfect so that he would stay home with them, right? Not a bad little angle, not a bad point of contention, but something that needs to be hashed out before the reveal that he is a CIA agent. She now has the burden of knowledge of what the job entails, and in good writing, this would allow her to have like some empathy and maybe, just maybe, be able to relate to the years Arnold spent juggling family and like doing world-saving missions. And don't get me wrong, they will discuss his absentee fatherism again and again and again and again and again and again. So not only is the plot pretty much like boilerplate stuff, the characters suffer from like that rubber banding effect where they always snap back despite having previously discussed the same dead equals bad puerile tantrums that are not befitting a CIA agent at the top of her field. The show wants us to think she's like this top operative, but no, absolutely not. And speaking of childish, the whole CIA team just act like maladjusted children. They're constantly interrupting their superiors just to interject awful jokes. Every mission briefing is essentially, I want to say it's a stand-in for the writers, who, like the writer's room. And I'm convinced at least 2 of those writers are Waldorf and Statler from the Muppets. Now, this is a real scene from Fubar.
You have to pump it harder.
That's what she said. That's the name of my porno. That's what I told my doctor.
Wow, Monet had his watercolors. You have your double entendres.
Now, this is the same scene, but we will cut to Waldorf and Statler instead.
I am pumping it.
You have to pump it harder.
Does that mean they're getting better or worse?
Now, sadly, this is what passes for comedy for most of the show, and they try to use jokes way too much. I know this is billed as a comedy, but forgive me and my old school way of thinking that jokes only work when they are funny. There's a recurring bit where they keep calling Barry Uncle Barry, and the show wants us to believe that these two actors are 11-ish something years apart. Take a look at them. They're 3 years apart. Absolutely not, sir. Ugh. Now, this show tries to do everything from physical gags to like drug gags. They even do puppet gags. Honestly, the less said about the show and its attempts to be funny, the better. I just don't have it in me. It's just depressing. And it's a shame that they went so lazy and childish with these characters and jokes, because there's some legitimate moments in the show. Like when the daughter has to do like a honeypot thing, she is left feeling awkward because she loves Jay Baruchel, but knows that, you know, the job needs to get done. And Arnold has this great scene where he gets to talk to his daughter about the sad necessity of that kind of work. You know, it's a nice scene, but the show doesn't really let their characters develop so much. So later on, the daughter turns into dad is bad tantrum mode, and the cycle repeats. One cool kind of character moment undercut immediately by that rubber band writing. I didn't look into it, but I wouldn't be surprised to find this as a scrapped movie idea to get some money into Arnold's pockets and hit the audience with tons of Arnold nostalgia. And this show has a lot of it. It seems at least once a scene, Arnold has to say a catchphrase or line of dialogue from one of his other movies. I mean, none of it feels natural because, you know, so we're used to hearing those iconic lines and, you know, other things. Maybe if the tone had been more overtly comedic and it would have been more like self-referential, it would be more enjoyable. But hearing Arnold say something about like Alabama ticks, it's just like jarring, you know, because that was Jesse the Body Ventura's line. But here we are. I mean, I admit to having very low expectations going into this show. Those expectations took a huge nosedive when I found out it was 8 hours. I mean, just why? I know it's so Netflix can say, oh, look at this, we got more viewing hours. But still, like, that can't be the standard for writing from now, is just putting out something so that way it just has hours of view time. They didn't have a script that could support 8 hours, nor apparently enough of a budget to do more than like a second take at best sometimes. Like, just none of this really works for me. The show skips around so much with like the sense of time in the show. They're always cutting forward like weeks in advance, or like here's another month in advance. Like they skip around a little bit with the plot. Like things just kind of happen to put them in the field, and then the character stuff. Oh my God, like that rubber banding I was talking about. It isn't worth it. It's not worth it to watch these maladjusted children yell at each other for 8 hours. I mean, if these had been half-hour episodes full of actual jokes, then I mean, like, maybe it would have been all right, but it needed to take a sharper turn into comedy. It needed to have stronger character writing, and they needed to, like, stop just repeating themselves. And, I mean, every episode has, like, the same format. So only watch this thing if you want to hear them argue nonstop about things that had already been put to rest in a previous episode, or so you would hope. Or like, there's nothing professional about the way these people act. Honestly, I'm running out of patience here even talking about it. So there's really only one way to sum up my Fubar viewing experience.
Appreciate this is what you wanted to talk to me about. This is why you want to take the ballgame to ease your guilt.
Nothing.
I'm not going to make a mistake.
Family situations, tense enough.